Northern Colorado, and all other podcast listeners. How are you doing out there?
Good.
Welcome back to another episode of The More You NoCo. If this is your first episode, check out some of the others. I hope you, as a listener of the show, start to feel a bit more connected to the overall NoCo community after taking in multiple episodes of the podcast. Today's guest is all about connecting the community and bringing together the people around her. She is the executive director of the FoCo Cafe. This is an incredibly unique restaurant with a catch. You'll have to go for yourself to get the full experience. But for now, I present to you Mallory Garneau of the FoCo Cafe. Here I sit in the presence of Mallory Garneau, the executive director of FoCo Cafe. Thanks for joining me on Saturday morning.
Thanks for having me.
And welcome. So for the listeners out there and for myself, because I'm not as familiar, what is the FoCo Cafe?
Yeah, so FoCo Cafe, our real name is actually Feeding Our Community Ourselves, Inc., known as FoCo Cafe.
So Feeding Our Community Ourselves.
Yes.
So not standing for Fort Collins.
It's a kind of a play on words, so it stands for both. But more importantly, the Feeding Our Community Ourselves aspect kind of says who we are. Mm-hmm. So we are the only nonprofit donation-based restaurant in Northern Colorado. Our mission is to build community through providing nutritious and delicious meals to all people, regardless of their ability to pay, while using mostly locally grown, sustainably grown, and organic ingredients.
Yeah, so can we jump into the pay system? It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Explain that for listeners.
Yeah, so technically there's 4 ways to pay. You can pay what you'd normally pay at a regular restaurant or for a comparable meal. Pay it forward so others might eat. Pay what you're able. If you only have $5 in your pocket, and that wouldn't usually cover the cost of a full meal, that's just fine here. And then if you can't pay with money, then we offer a meal in exchange for your volunteerism and time and talent.
So then you just schedule a time, you come in and volunteer?
That's preferable. We do have 5 shifts a day that people can sign up through online, and those are usually about 2 to 3 hour shifts, and those are the most helpful for us. We do very much depend on volunteers to run. We only have 4 employees. We do have walk-in volunteers as well, though. So if someone doesn't have access to the internet or anything like that, they can just walk in and let us know that they're ready to volunteer in exchange for their meal, and we'll find them something pretty quick and easy for them to get done.
Mm. And when you mention the comparable price point, I assume there's no price on the menu. It's just whatever they feel like they would pay at another place.
That's correct. So we do soup, salads, and desserts and breads. Most of the time. So if you think about Spoons or Panera or somewhere else that you might get a plate full of different soups and salads, then that would be kind of, the thought around paying for something that's a comparable meal. The difference there is that we do encourage seconds, thirds, fourths. You can try every single thing on the menu, unlike most restaurants. So it is a little bit different in that aspect, but that's kind of the idea.
And it lowers the pressure to make a choice.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I picked the wrong thing, and now this is awful, but I can give it to my friend, and, let's see, now what? Gives you a second chance.
It's interesting because our society is so used to having prices on everything. So a lot of people want a number. They want to say, well, what is fair? How much does it cost you to make a meal? It costs us about $12 a plate, all inclusive, having someone to make the food, utilities, a place to serve the food, buying the food. It's about $12. And so if people really ask and need a number, then that's something we'll tell them. But it is super up to their own discretion to decide.
It is very interesting to think that people may struggle with the concept of not having a price, and they need you to tell them, here's the ballpark, or here's a starting point to pay. I hadn't really considered that. I guess it would be interesting to walk into a space with all these items, and then when it comes time to pay, they ask you, well, how much would you like to pay for this? And the menu system, I was seeing that you have a daily rotation, and it seems like the most up-to-date hotspot for that would be the Facebook page?
That's accurate, yes. Also, our website will have it. Anytime our menu is posted on our Facebook, it will also be posted on our website. We try to do it every single day, but the menu does change every single day. And our chef gets creative with everything he finds at the cafe in the morning and, makes what he can out of that. So we don't know the menu usually until an hour or so before we actually open for that day. So you never really get bored. You always get, a different selection of food, especially if you eat here every day like I do. The soups change every single day. We always have a Caesar salad that's vegetarian. We always have our house apple salad, and we always have some similar breads. And in terms of our soups, we always make sure we have a vegan option, a vegetarian option, a meat option, a kid-friendly option, gluten-free options, all sorts of stuff. So we really kind of tune into those dietary needs of a lot of people. So beyond those who necessarily can't pay for their meal or that want to pay it forward, we also get the people that are just really not concerned, but that are in tune to, their health.
Mm-hmm. A lot of food comes from surrounding areas. What partnerships do you have, and how did you all build that?
Yeah, so I've been here for about 2.5 years. So much of our partner building happened before my time, but we do partner with a lot of local farmers. We get a lot of our dried goods from the Mountain Avenue Market. They just changed their name from the Food Cooperative. So we still do local as much as we can in terms of that stuff. But when it's fresh produce, we have partners like Native Hill Farm, Alpine Bloom Farm, and Apothecaries. The Growing Project is one of our biggest partners, and they'll actually be a much bigger partner in the future because they're about to build a community garden on our space outside of the cafe. So all of the food grown in the Growing Project's community garden at the cafe will go straight into those meals to feed the community. So it's going to be a really strong partnership beyond what we already have. There's probably about 8 other farms that we work with, especially during, the growing season in the summer. All the farmers at the farmers markets will send a volunteer over there often with a cart, since it's just right down the street. Mm-hmm. And they'll stop by each and every one of the booths and let them know who we are and that we're here to collect any produce that they may not need or want or would just like to donate. So oftentimes on Saturdays, we'll come home with a big assortment of different vegetables and stuff from all, up to 8 local farms from the farmers market.
So how do you all, kind of bridge the gap between non-growing season? I assume winter might be a little slower. You just try to find other sources and...
That's right. We do have to shop at the grocery stores when, we have to. We try to stay away from that as much as possible. There has been efforts to get a walk-in refrigerator or freezer to help prolong the life of that produce so that we can serve it longer into the year. And actually, we just got word that Nutrien, it's a company in Loveland, they are granting us $9,000 to buy a walk-in refrigerator for that very purpose.
Well,
so currently we do struggle with, having the fresh and local produce during the winter, but it will, again, get much easier to do that.
And you were telling me that you all have had an influx of volunteers lately, that you've had so many volunteers. Some of them you were struggling to find something to help out with.
Yeah, it's been wonderful, especially during, the giving season around the holidays. People have more time off. They're more in that mindset of giving back and paying it forward. So we get a lot of groups can help with really important stuff that we can't just do with 1 or 2 people usually. But yeah, sometimes it's hard to find enough work for everyone in such a little place. So we actually have also been working with Eco Thrift that's across the street. She can always use volunteers. So if we really have nothing for them to do, she's more than happy to give them something to do. And they're usually more than happy to go help her across the street in exchange for a meal over here at FoCo Cafe.
Okay. And you've been here 2.5 years.
Yeah, I've been 1.5 years as the executive director, and 1 year I started here as an intern getting my master's in social work at CSU.
Oh, very nice. So Colorado State led you here. I was about to ask you, is there any more to the story about getting here, finding out about FoCo Cafe, and getting involved?
Yeah, so like I said, I did start through CSU. I had heard about FoCo Cafe for several years before that because it took them a couple years to raise enough funds to actually get the building and stuff like that. So I had heard about it before I actually moved to Thailand to teach English, and it hadn't been opened yet or anything like that. And then when I came back, I still couldn't find a job with my bachelor's in social work. And so I decided to go back to school, and I really wanted something a little less traditional in terms of a social work internship. I don't want to be a therapist or a counselor necessarily or do one-on-one work, but really I wanted to work with communities. One of my professors recommended the FoCo Cafe as a, different experience and brought me here, and I'm more grateful than anything.
And what do you enjoy about being here? And how is this centered on what you wanted to experience from a career?
Yeah, so for me personally, I've always been interested in working and helping people however I can. I didn't know what that looked like for a long time. So that's why I kind of did some exploring. I did social work and worked with human trafficking, and that was kind of where I thought I wanted to be for a while. And then I explored with teaching because you don't know until you try. So I decided I didn't want to do that either. And so it took me a while to really find my niche, but I knew the idea around that. And that was, just working with groups of people and communities on basic needs. I studied abroad in South Africa when I was getting my bachelor's in social work. And that was kind of my first exposure and experience that kind of led my heart to where it is now. And that's the whole basic needs and human rights thing. Everyone thinks about, access to fresh water and food as an issue for kids in Africa, but really it's also an issue right here in our backyard. And I really felt that I could, try and do something about that. So I came back and here I am.
What grade did you teach?
I taught 3rd grade in Thailand. It was just English, so we did grammar, reading, writing, phonics, all sorts of stuff. It was challenging. I used to say it was the hardest job I ever had, but I can't say that anymore.
Oh, okay. What would that be now? Your current position?
That would be this one, yes.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work.
Somehow still the most challenging, yet still the most rewarding.
Absolutely, and that's usually how it happens.
Yeah. I also was a teacher, but I taught 7th grade math, and then I ended up teaching 10th, 11th grade math in high schools, both in Dallas and out here in Greeley. I just felt the same. It was challenging. I always took solace in that there would never be another first year of teaching because, my God, that was the craziest year of my life. And any new teacher, that's what I tell them. Hey, look, always remember there's only one first year, and then after that, things get better. Did you teach for a year?
I did 7 months.
7 months.
So, and yes, it was maybe if I stuck it through. And by the time I left, I was almost feeling like I was ready to stay, like I'd figured it out kind of thing. But I had family and stuff back home that I had to kind of attend to. So I do have a story that I'd love to share that kind of, again, helped me connect with the cafe and really want to, move forward and stay here. And that was during my training to become the executive director with one of our co-founders, Kathleen. So I'd come to the cafe every morning for several months and just learn and work with her. And one way people can volunteer for their meals is if they have, musical talents, they can play our house guitar or house drum for the lunch crowd in exchange for their meal. So we had this young woman who would come in almost every day. It was very often. And she would come in right before we'd open and she'd stay for quite a while. And so that's what she did. She volunteered through her music in exchange for her meal. After a while, I noticed that she wasn't there for about a week. And that seemed strange because she was there so often. She had such a great sound. She sounded like Norah Jones or something like that. And she was just playing at the cafe every day. It was wonderful. Once I noticed that she wasn't here for a while, I asked Kathleen if she knew what had happened and, whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. Was she okay? Did she find a house or a job or, so she said she was fine. And actually she had stopped by before she left. She was moving to California because she did find a house and a job out there. But before she moved to California, she stopped by and brought a framed photo that's actually upstairs, and I can show it to you. It's a hand-drawn picture that says something along the lines of that which feeds the body and soul is a gift to all. Everyone that comes in for a meal at the cafe, they get a roll of silverware, and that is held together with a quote. And so we have about 6,000 quotes. So every time she came in, she saved her quote on her napkin roll. And this picture upstairs is framed with her quotes from every time she joined us for lunch and volunteered. And at the bottom of the picture, she wrote, "I saved these because you saved me." And that was right at the beginning of my training. And it really just kind of resonated with me that that's why we do what we do. And that's why the cafe is here. And that's why we don't do free meals, because people really gain this sense of responsibility and encouragement and empowerment from having to give back in order to get something. Yeah, that's just, it really kind of hits home every time I think about it.
Yeah, because and you said that this was going on right when you got involved with FoCo Cafe. Why do you think this is? You think it breeds this, like a mutual partnership, and it's not just, I come in for a free meal X amount of times. It is, I feel this responsibility, and it almost creates this human connection of, well, okay, you've given me something, and now it's time for me to give you something in the exchange. And then it actually gives you all an opportunity to see people more than once. It's not a drive-by meal, right? It is, well, how can we meet you again? How can you come in and how can we start to form a relationship and get to learn who each other are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the main reasons people start to feel that sense of, purpose and responsibility is because we hold them accountable. We don't give free meals. And that's why it works, is because if we did, it would just be like a soup kitchen where we're giving out free meals and you're mostly seeing those people that need the free meals instead of a mixture of the community that both can pay it forward and can't pay. Yeah, it's just pretty interesting. And so when people that are so used to just getting things handed to them because they need them, and those services are important, but they're not used to being asked for anything in return for that blanket or that sleeping bag or that hat usually. They just get it because they need it. When we're asking for something in return, they are held accountable, and then they start to feel that, and then they realize, so often when people are down on their luck, they don't feel like they have anything to offer. What am I going to give you? I don't have anything. I don't have much. I don't have a phone. I don't have food for my next meal. What do you want from me? But once we show them, like, you have these skills, you have this, you are important, there's dignity there, and you should be treated that way, and you do have a meaningful opportunity to be involved in community. And yeah, that's again really just what keeps us going in this direction, is that people have moved from self-sufficiency from homelessness because of just the sense of understanding that they are good enough and that they do have it in them to, change their lives around. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of a push.
Yeah. And I may not have $10 right now, but getting people to look inside and say, what do I have to offer? And showing them that you do have skills, you do have talents, and you're more than welcome here. That is awesome.
Yeah.
What other stories come to mind besides this lovely lady who came in and sang for a while before moving to California? What are some other interesting ways people have found to give back?
I find another story that comes to mind all the time is one that I'll share in a minute, but it's regarding the power of choice. So at FoCo Cafe, if you think about it, we see a lot of people that don't get to choose much of what's going on in their lives. They go to the Murphy Center and they get their sleeping bag and their hat and their jacket, whatever they need, but they don't get to pick the color. They don't get to pick the size sometimes. They don't get to pick if it's used or new. They don't get the choices that most of us take for granted. So when you come here, you walk in, you get to choose whatever you want off the menu on your plate. You can choose it all. You can choose one. And we do that on several different levels. So another thing that we do during the winter time is our Warm Wishes Scarf Project. So those are the scarves, if you notice, they're hanging up all over the cafe inside, all over the railings and on our picture frames and all sorts of stuff. So that's up from basically during the whole winter. And that's community members that donated new or handmade scarves, and each scarf has a message of hope on it, sort of like the silverware. So it's meant to warm you on the outside and the inside. Beyond that, we also have hats, socks, gloves, coats, as much as we can, but the scarves is the main part of it. A couple years ago, I think it might have been the first year we had the Warm Wishes Scarf Project, and it was before my time, but the story really resonated with me when it was told. A woman had come in after we were closed for lunch, so we close at 2. A woman had come in at maybe 3 or 4, and we were still around, and we still had some food, so we packed her up something to go, but let her know that, we're open from 11 to 2 every day, and that if she wants to make sure to come for a meal, that's the time to come. So while we packed her up a meal, Kathleen, one of our co-founders, was chatting with her, asked her how her day was, what she was up to. The woman had just gotten off work. Kathleen asked where she worked. She said she was a bell ringer outside of one of the grocery stores. Kathleen noticed she wasn't wearing a jacket, so she asked if that's what she had worn to work, knowing that it was winter and an outside job, and she said that it was all that she had. That's when, Kathleen noticed that there was a jacket. Like I said, we have the scarves, but we also have jackets and things like that. There's a jacket hanging on the railing right next to them. Kathleen told her to try it on, and, to her dismay, it fit, and Kathleen said she could have it, and she was pretty taken back by the fact that she could just take something without signing anything or, giving us information about herself. She could just take it home. After that, Kathleen said, all you need now is a scarf to go with it. And the woman asked, which one can I have? And she said, whichever one you'd like. And the woman fell to the floor and started crying at that point. And Kathleen didn't understand why. She thought maybe she'd said something wrong. And the woman said, no, nothing, you said nothing wrong. I just don't usually get to choose. So again, that power of choice can be so powerful for so many people. And again, so many of us take that for granted. That wouldn't have come to mind if I hadn't heard that story. I wouldn't necessarily think of that right off the bat, because I've been really lucky. And that's one of the reasons I want to, help give back.
That is, it's a great story.
Yeah, thank you.
Being here for 2.5 years, has anything at FoCo Cafe in your time here surprised you, or is there a part of this service that you didn't anticipate?
Since I've started, I've hired 2 new chefs. And since I've been with the cafe, we've had 4 chefs in that role. And they're all very different. And that's a very critical role at the cafe, obviously. So learning how to work with ambiguity and learning how to work with different styles and keeping an important consistency for our customers while allowing our chefs to explore and really utilize their own skills rather than following in someone else's footsteps has been interesting, but really proven to be pretty great. Our community has been able to try so many more things than they've been able to if we just had one person. Oftentimes when the co-founders were here, we did the menu the same for a couple weeks or a month at a time. And now we do it different literally every single day. So things have changed, but there's still a consistency in terms of the types of things we offer, always having the dietary needs covered, all that kind of stuff. And beyond that, we've had some financial difficulties with having to hire new people. We have had to purchase workers' compensation insurance because we were all volunteer driven before and we didn't need it. So there's the insurance, there's the payroll expenses, there's the other insurance, we've had to buy a music license to be able to allow our guests to play cover songs for their meals.
Really?
Yeah. So there's been a lot of just unexpected things that have kind of hit us in the last year and a half, pretty much. So we did just do a Save the FoCo Cafe fundraising campaign in September and October.
Man, I wish we could have had this podcast right before that.
Yeah, well, we'll do it every year in the spring because it proved to be really effective, and it seems to be our answer to sustainability. It's really hard to find a way to make this concept sustainable if we're always just kind of sitting in our seats waiting to see what people donate. Since we are volunteer driven, but we do only have 4 employees, we very much need those people to volunteer, and it only works if people have the right idea and concept and thought about what the FoCo Cafe does. If the whole community saw it as a soup kitchen, then we wouldn't make nearly the money we need to, and we probably wouldn't be here. If everyone saw it as just a nice restaurant and didn't really see it as something that offered an affordable option, then again, we wouldn't be filling our mission and our needs, and that's why we're here. There's been a lot of things, including our board of directors changed drastically since I've started. We had 3 members on it, and now we have 9, and they all have, good expertise in certain fields and stuff like that. So it's all been a big learning experience, and some of it's been really hard and some of it's been really great. And
you all are really trying to avoid being pigeonholed as one type of restaurant, because you want people who can come in and pay that typical price, $12 a plate. You want people who come in and donate way more, and then we want people who come in who can't pay right now, but how can we figure out how you can help, and not having any of these groups think that the restaurant's not for them, and that has got to be incredibly challenging.
It's an interesting playing field being in the middle of both being a nonprofit and a restaurant, but not being one or the other, and being the only of our kind in the area. We don't really have different models to look at that much, except for some other cafes that are elsewhere.
I imagine some staff at restaurants that change their menu every day have some challenges. They come in, they've always got a new thing to learn and turn around. You can't get in the groove of like, oh, okay, I know what a number 6 is. Boom, 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 it's out. Not only do you all change the menu daily, but you also rotate your volunteer staff who are maybe volunteering for the first time or they haven't volunteered in a month. How does this... I'm sitting here trying to imagine how this would work and how the building doesn't catch on fire.
We've had some time to perfect it, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It is very challenging, in particularly for our chef and our volunteer coordinator and operations manager, because they are the ones that work with the volunteers and train them, basically. Yeah, and oftentimes, we'll have some volunteers that do every Monday or once a month, or we have some that have done it 3 days a week since we opened. But then we have a lot of one-time volunteers that just need 5 hours of community service or just want to try it out. And so, yeah, it can definitely be challenging. And I think one of the most important things around that is to have patience. We take pride in the training aspects of our volunteer shifts. So in the morning from 9 to 11, you're working with the chef, and that's when you have the opportunity to help actually make the food. Learn how to cut an onion properly, that kind of thing. It's easy in the sense that, he can teach a different volunteer every single day how to chop an onion, and he'll know how to do that with his eyes closed asleep after a while. But yeah, you don't get to build that rapport and those group dynamics that you usually do with a staff that's there every day or with a rotating staff like most restaurants. So it is challenging, but it's also really beautiful because we get to meet so many people and they get to be in these roles that is open to anyone. Kind of just this empowerment aspect to that, even if you're not homeless or in need or anything, but being able to be like, I helped run that place. And they did. We very much depend on that.
So you're open 11 to 2.
11 to 2, Monday through Saturday. But, beyond that, we actually do a lot more than just lunch, and we haven't really touched on that. I don't know if we tried to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, what do you do besides lunch?
So besides lunch, we have our kids program in the summer. It's called Kids Feeding Kids. It's meant to fill the gap for kids that are on free and reduced lunch during school, because in the summer they stop serving. So some of those kids don't have access to a meal or let alone a healthy meal when the school is out of session. So we have a healthy breakfast, not just for the kids, but also their families. So many other programs which are all fantastic. But again, we try to fill the gaps that there are. And so many programs will feed the children, but not the parents, and vice versa, and that kind of thing. So we just try and make it really fair and open to everyone. And we do social capital building activities and educational activities too. So we'll bring in farmers. We brought in one of our partners, and they taught the kids about beekeeping. We brought in mini goats, and we learned about milk. We brought in chickens and learned where eggs come from. We do yoga at the park. We do herb taste testing. We do arts and crafts. We do all sorts of stuff, and that way, those kids that usually don't have access to the meal not only have access to a meal, but they also have access to an activity that gives them some meaning in their summer. Lots of them don't have the money to go to the pool or go camping or anything like that, and this is kind of their only fun. So we've done 3 years of that, and we're going to move on to our 4th year next year.
Very cool.
We also have 5 outdoor community resources that some of them are available 24/7, 365. We have our giving tree, which houses basic need items like toiletries, single-serving dog food, clothing, shoes, all that kind of stuff. And that's available during regular business hours when we're open. And then we have our kindness cupboard, which is 24/7, and that houses non-perishable goods. So canned foods, granola bars, pasta, all that kind of stuff. And you can just go in the middle of the night if you want and check it out. So people don't have to initially watch you shop if you want to do it privately.
I see.
We also have our FoCo fridge, which is a free fridge, hence the name fridge.
I like it.
And that's on our patio, and that houses fresh produce and things like breads and milk and eggs and stuff like that, all open for the community to give what they can and take what they need.
Okay, so you can both put items in this fridge and you can take stuff.
And that's how all of them are. So the giving tree, the cupboard, any of that, you can come use it, but you can also come contribute.
That's awesome.
We also have an outdoor library, and we have the first of only 2 all-season water fountains in the entire city of Fort Collins.
Whoa.
So for a while, we had the only one for about a year, and it kind of turned into a ripple effect, and now there's another one downtown, which is really awesome. Because through our lunch service, we noticed that a lot of people were struggling to get access to fresh water that wasn't coming out of a gas station bathroom sink and stuff like that. So there's that, but we also do a lot of fundraising events to, again, help fill those gaps of those that can't pay for their meals and, our utilities and all these other things. And so we do a bike and music festival every summer, which encourages alternative transportation. There's only bike parking, so you kind of have to ride your bike or get dropped off or something like that. And it's all local music. We do our Party with a Purpose in December, which has a silent auction. And then we do our Faces of FoCo Cafe membership drive every spring. We do have a couple events coming up here soon. One is January 23rd. It's a cooking class where our chef, he usually carries out cooking classes in Wyoming with up to 200 people in attendance.
Oh, nice.
But we're doing our first one here with him, and he's teaching people how to make individual lasagna roulades, which are kind of quick and easy one-person sized lasagnas. Usually you have to make a whole pan, and it's a pain in the ass, but this is a little bit different. We've got that on January 23rd. Tickets are available online through Facebook and stuff as well.
Okay.
And then we also have a brunch fundraiser the Saturday after Valentine's Day on February 16th from 10 to 1. It's a ticketed dinner, so it's not pay what you can because it is a fundraiser. But it's about $20 a ticket. You get either a mimosa or a beer mosa included, and we're making brunch with frittatas, and we'll have waffles from the Waffle Lab, and some really good stuff. So
dang, I feel like the last 5 minutes we popped off more info than the entire previous, so we might just have to have you back on the show.
I'd love that.
Coming up on one of these events next year.
Yeah.
In 2019.
That'd be awesome.
So thank you for your time, and everyone should check out FoCo Cafe sometime between typically 11 and 2, lunch, Monday through Saturday.
Yeah.
And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Do you also enjoy the music used here at the More You NoCo? I want to shout out my good friend Russell Isaac Long for always giving us those hot fire tracks. Are you looking for a little bit of bonus content in addition to the episodes of the More You NoCo? Check us out on Facebook or Instagram at the More You NoCo. Original, right? Don't worry, we'll be back soon. Until next time, peace!